There is a reward. God said it exists. He spoke about it not as a maybe, not as a distant possibility, but as something real and specific and already prepared for you. But here is what most people never hear. That reward is locked. And the key to it is not prayer alone, not positive thinking, not simply waiting long enough. The key is a test. And the reason most people never receive the reward is not because they failed the test. It is because they quit before they ever understood that the test had already begun. I want to talk to you right now as someone who knows exactly where you are. You have been faithful. You have kept going when everything in you wanted to stop. You have prayed in the dark, trusted in the silence, and held on through seasons that made no sense and showed no signs of ending. And somewhere along the way, maybe recently, maybe this very week, a quiet question started creeping in. Am I still chosen? Because if I were, wouldn't something have changed by now? Maybe you have been waiting so long that the waiting itself has become its own kind of weight, something you carry without thinking about it anymore, because it has just become part of how your days feel. Maybe you have been faithful in ways that nobody sees, in the small things and the quiet moments and the choices that cost you something real, and you are starting to wonder if faithfulness without visible results is just another word for stubbornness. Maybe you have been telling yourself one more day, one more week, one more season, and you are quietly running out of reasons to keep saying it. What I am about to share with you today is not the usual encouragement. This is not a message designed to make you feel better for an hour and then fade by morning. This is something God has already said about the test, about the reward, and about the exact reason why the door is closer right now than it has ever been, even when you cannot see it. And when you understand the architecture of this test, not just that it is happening, but why it is built the way it is, everything you are carrying right now is going to shift in meaning completely. Stay with me through this entire message, because what I am going to walk you through the real structure of the test, the hidden reason why most people quit right before the breakthrough, and something specific I discovered that changes how your mind actually processes this season. Those things are worth staying for, every single one of them. Do not skip ahead. The piece at the end is the piece that makes everything before it makes sense. Let me start here. The test is real, not metaphorical, not poetic language designed to make suffering sound noble. A real, structured, intentional test with a real reward waiting on the other side. And the evidence for this is not hidden. It is written across every major story of transformation in Scripture. Abraham waited 25 years for a promise that made no logical sense to keep believing in. And in year 24, nothing had changed. In year 23, nothing had changed. The promise looked exactly the same as it did in year 1, unrealized, unconfirmed, just words he had received and carried alone. But the man who walked out of that season was not the same man who entered it. That was the point. Joseph spent years in a pit, then in a prison, then in a room where no one knew his name, and no one was coming to explain why this was happening. Not because he had done anything wrong, not because God had forgotten him, but because the man who was going to stand before Pharaoh and carry the weight of an entire nation's survival, that man could not have been built in comfort. He had to be built in confinement. David killed the giant and then spent the next decade running for his life. The palace came after the cave. The throne came after the wilderness. And not one of those years in hiding was wasted. Every single one of them was preparation. Every single one of them was forming something in him that the throne would later require. Here is the first thing I need you to understand. The test did not come to fail you. That is not why it exists. A test designed purely to fail you would have a pass rate of 0, and God does not build systems without purpose. The test came to reveal you. Not to God, He already knows who you are, but to build the version of you that the reward requires. Because the reward is not simply a thing you receive and then go about your life unchanged. The reward that has been locked for you is the kind of thing that demands a specific kind of person to hold it well, and that person is built through exactly the kind of season you are in right now. Now here is something that stopped me when I first understood it. Most people quit before starting. And I know that sounds strange at first, because you might be thinking, I have already started. I am already in the middle of it. What does it mean to quit before starting? Here is what it means. There are phases to this test. And the first phase, the one that separates most people from what is waiting on the other side, is the invisible phase. Nothing is changing on the outside. No confirmation has arrived. No sign has appeared. No one around you can see that anything is different. And yet, something is running. Something is building. The transformation is happening silently, in places you cannot yet observe. No sign, no signal, no evidence, and yet the process is running. The people who receive the reward are not the people who were stronger than everyone else. They are the people who understood, even without proof, that the process was real, and they stayed. That distinction is everything. And now I want to ask you something. If the invisible phase is the most dangerous part of the test, and most people quit in exactly this phase, what is the test actually measuring? What is God looking for in this season of silence and pressure and waiting? Because when you understand what is being tested specifically, everything changes, and that is exactly where we are going next. Let me tell you something about the test that most people never consider. The intensity of the test is proportional to the size of what is waiting on the other side of it. That is not cruelty. That is design. The deeper the calling, the longer the silence, the greater the assignment, the heavier the preparation, the higher the reward, the more specific the test that stands between you and it. And here is what that means for you, chosen one. If your season has felt unusually long, unusually heavy, unusually isolating, the kind of season that makes you feel like no one around you quite understands what you are carrying, that is not punishment. That is proportion. The weight of your preparation matches the weight of what you are being prepared for. So what is the test actually measuring? There are three things, and every phase of this season is designed to test at least one of them. The first is loyalty in obscurity. Can you keep going when no one is watching? When there is no audience, no validation, no one checking in to confirm that what you are doing matters, when the only reason to stay faithful is because it is the right thing to do? That kind of loyalty cannot be manufactured. It can only be proven through exactly the kind of season you are in. The second is faithfulness in the small things. Because whatever is in your hand right now, however small and insignificant it feels, compared to what you were promised, the way you handle it is a preview of the way you will handle what is coming. God does not promote people who despise small things. He promotes people who are faithful in them. And the third, this is the one that breaks most people, is identity stability under pressure. Do you know who you are when everything around you is saying otherwise? When the circumstances say you are forgotten, when the silence says you are abandoned, when the length of the delay says you have been disqualified. Can you look at all of that and still know what you know about yourself? That is what is being tested, not your strength, your roots. And I want to say something directly to anyone who has felt invisible in this season. The silence is not rejection. The obscurity is not abandonment. There is a reason that the most important things in nature are built in hidden places. The seed grows underground before it ever breaks the surface. The child is fully formed before the world ever sees it. What is built in isolation is always more durable than what is built in public. You are not the exception who got forgotten. You are the one being prepared in private, because what is being built in you cannot be built with an audience. And I hear the Father saying this to you right now. Receive these words, not as poetry, but as something spoken directly into this moment of your life. He is saying, I see the cost of what you have been carrying. I see every morning you woke up and chose to trust when you had every reason not to. I did not place you in this season because I forgot about you. I placed you here because this is exactly where the person I need you to become is formed. You are not waiting for my attention. You have always had it. But there is something I have not told you yet. Something that connects the spiritual reality of this test to what is actually happening inside your mind and your body in this season. Because there is a discovery from the neuroscience laboratories at Princeton about what happens to the brain during prolonged seasons of pressure and silence. And what those scientists found has a direct connection to why most people do not make it through this phase. Not because of a lack of faith, but because of something happening inside the brain that most people do not know to protect. I am going to talk about that in part 2. And when you hear it, the test, the reward, and this season you are in, they are going to connect in a way that changes everything. In part 1, we talked about the test. We talked about how it is real, how it has a structure, and how it is measuring 3 specific things: your loyalty when no one is watching, your faithfulness in the small things, and your ability to know who you are when the pressure is saying otherwise. And I ended with a question about what is happening inside the brain during this season. Because that piece, the science of what prolonged pressure actually does to the mind, is the piece that explains why most people do not make it through. Not because they were not chosen, but because of something they did not know to protect. Stay with me, because what comes next is the part of this message I believe you were meant to hear. Let me tell you about the architecture of the test. Specifically, about one thing that very few people know, and that has always been the reason the breakthrough feels impossible right before it arrives. The darkest moment of the test is not in the middle, it is at the end. I need you to let that land, because it changes everything about how you interpret where you are right now. The heaviest, most disorienting, most faith-testing phase of this entire season does not come early. It comes right before the door opens, and there is a reason for this both spiritually and in nature. In nature, the pressure inside a cocoon does not decrease as the butterfly gets closer to emerging. It increases. The resistance is highest in the final moments, because that final resistance is what forces the wings to develop the strength they need to fly. A butterfly that is freed too early before that last phase of pressure cannot fly. Its wings never fully form. The thing that feels like it is ending you is the last step of the formation. Joseph was in prison the day before Pharaoh called his name. Not in freedom, not in comfort, not in a place where anything looked like it was about to change. In a cell, in the dark. David was in the cave, cold, hunted, surrounded by the very people who wanted him gone the night before the kingdom opened to him. You are in your darkest hour, and the door is right here. Here is why most people quit at exactly this moment. When the pressure is at its highest, the brain reads that as danger. This is not weakness, this is biology. The brain is built to interpret sustained difficulty as a signal to find an exit, any exit, as quickly as possible. And so people quit, not because they have been disqualified, but because they followed a signal that was designed to be loudest at exactly the moment when staying is most important. They quit because it has been too long. They quit because they see no sign. They quit because everyone around them is saying, let it go, move on, maybe it was never meant to be. They quit one day before the answer comes, one prayer before the silence breaks, one sunrise before everything shifts. And I want to ask you something, and I want you to take a moment before you answer it. You are here. You are still in this. You have not walked away. What does that tell you about who you are? Now here is the revelation that changes everything. The piece that reframes not just this season, but what the reward actually is. Here is what God has said. The reward that is locked behind this test is not simply a thing that is going to come to you from the outside. It is not only a promotion, a relationship, a financial shift, a healing, though all of those things are real and they are coming. But they are not the reward, they are the fruit. The reward, the thing that was locked, the thing that was protected, the thing that required every single day of this season to build, is you, who you are becoming right now, in the fire that no one else can see. The money will come, the calling will be confirmed, the doors will open, But none of it would be sustainable in the hands of the person you were before this season began. The reward is locked not to keep it from you. It is locked to protect it until you are ready to carry it without it breaking you. You went in needing someone else to tell you who you are, and you are coming out knowing it for yourself. You went in reactive, and you are coming out decided. You went in desperate for validation, and you are coming out rooted in something that no person and no circumstance can shake. You went in asking God to prove himself, and you are coming out with a faith that does not need proof, because it has been tested and it held. That is not a consolation prize while you wait for the real blessing. That is the blessing. And everything else that follows is simply what becomes possible for a person who has been built the way you are being built right now. What felt like abandonment was actually positioning. What felt like silence was actually protection. What felt like delay was actually development. And that is not random. And that is not coincidence. And that is not an accident. And I hear the Father saying this, and I want you to receive it, not as the closing of a message, but as a word that has been looking for you. He is saying, I did not withhold the reward because you had not earned it. I withheld it because you were not yet able to carry it without losing yourself in it. The test was never about whether you could endure the pressure. It was about whether I could trust you with what I have prepared. And what I see in you right now, the staying, the holding on, the choosing to trust when trust cost you everything, that tells me everything I needed to know. You are ready. So here is where we are. The test is real. It is designed. It is measuring the deepest things in you, your roots, your faithfulness, your identity under pressure. And the reward is not just something you are waiting to receive. It is something you are becoming. And you are closer to the threshold than you have ever been. But I want to come back to something I mentioned at the end of part 1, the neuroscience piece. Because this is not only a spiritual reality, it is also a physical one. And understanding what is happening inside the brain during this season explains something that has been weighing on a lot of people who are exactly where you are. Not a lack of faith, not a lack of desire. Something that the system created and that science has now found a way to address. At the end of part 1, I referenced a discovery from the neuroscience labs at Princeton. Here is where it connects directly to this conversation. When the brain is under sustained pressure, the kind that comes from long seasons of uncertainty and waiting and invisible formation, it shifts away from the brainwave frequency associated with clarity, intuition, and what scientists describe as a flow state. That frequency is called gamma. And here is what makes this particularly significant for people like you. Gamma is not something you build through effort. You were born with it. Every child has it, and you can see it in the way a child absorbs new information almost effortlessly, creates without self-consciousness, and moves through the world with a lightness and sharpness that most adults have long since lost. Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist with 34 years of research, describes gamma as the God-given brainwave. The frequency where the brain operates at its highest capacity, where insight comes clearly, where decisions feel solid, where the connection between who you are and what you are called to do feels undeniable. But the research shows that gamma begins to decline around age 7. The education system, the weight of growing up, the accumulated pressure of disappointment and adaptation, all of it pushes the brain slowly into lower, slower frequencies. Scientists call this the decline effect, and it is why so many people who felt sharp and creative and full of possibility as children eventually find themselves feeling foggy, slow, disconnected from that original version of themselves. For a chosen one, someone who was born with gamma running stronger than average, someone who felt things more deeply and learned things more quickly and sensed things that the people around them could not explain. The decline effect hits harder. The gap between who they were designed to be and who the system shaped them to become is larger. The weight of this season does not feel heavier because you are weaker. It feels heavier because you were built to operate at a higher frequency, and that frequency has been suppressed. I want to tell you about someone who came across this research in the middle of a season very much like yours. She had always been someone who walked into a room and immediately saw the path forward, sharp, decisive, clear, in a way that other people noticed. But after years of sustained pressure and repeated disappointment, she described that sharpness as feeling like it was behind a wall of fog. She was making decisions slowly, or not making them at all, second-guessing things she had once known with complete certainty. She came across the work of Dr. Robert Lake, specifically a 7-minute audio track he developed that uses brain entrainment technology to guide the brain directly back into the gamma frequency. Not through meditation, which the research shows can take months to produce measurable gamma synchronization. Directly, in 7 minutes, through precisely calibrated sound frequencies. She said the decisions she had been delaying for an entire year she made in a single morning. Not because her circumstances changed, because something in her mind cleared. She described it as a return, like coming back to something that had always been hers. I know what some of you are thinking right now. You have tried things before. Meditation, healing sounds, every technique that someone promised would change something, and nothing really shifted. I want to speak directly to why this is different, because it matters. Meditation is powerful. But to produce genuine gamma synchronization, it requires months, sometimes years, of consistent daily practice. Most people in a season like this do not have that kind of capacity. Brain entrainment works on a completely different mechanism. It uses specific sound frequencies to guide the brain directly into the gamma state, the same way a tuning fork causes another nearby tuning fork to vibrate at the same pitch. It is not a slower version of the same thing. It is a different category, entirely neuroscience, working directly on the brain's frequency, not a practice that builds toward it gradually over time. Here is what Dr. Robert Lake built. He took 34 years of research and the technology that used to require $300 per hour in a biofeedback clinic or $7,000 worth of equipment to use at home, and he compressed it into a 7-minute digital audio track. You put on headphones, you close your eyes, you listen. That is the entire practice. The brain entrainment technology does the work while you rest. The standard price for this track is $49. For the people watching this video, Dr. Lake has made it available at $39. That price does not exist on Amazon. It does not exist on Spotify or anywhere else online. It is only accessible through the link in the description and the pinned comment of this video. With that $39, you receive the Genius Song audio track itself. You also receive 4 bonuses at no additional cost: a children's audio track called Genius Child, designed to help young minds develop focus and confidence. You receive the original book that inspired the film The Secret, available for $20 on Amazon, included here for free. You receive a guided visualization for the 4 most important areas of your life: money, love, health, and purpose. And you receive a printed infographic of the 5 most important habits for building the future you are becoming. The full money-back guarantee means that if after listening you feel no difference, none, you receive every dollar back. No questions, no conditions, no explanation required. There is one thing I need to warn you about before I give you the link. There are counterfeit versions of this track circulating online on Amazon, on YouTube, on Spotify, under names that look similar. They use the branding, but they do not contain the actual brain entrainment technology. What produces the result is the embedded frequency, not the audio itself. Without the real technology, it is just a sound file. The only way to guarantee you are receiving the original track, the full technology, the 4 bonuses, and the money-back guarantee is through the link in the description and the pinned comment below this video. Do not search for it anywhere else. If you want to explore this 7-minute practice, I have placed the only link in the description and in the pinned comment of this video. Every day the gamma frequency stays suppressed is another day this season carries more weight than it needs to. The version of you that is waiting on the other side of this did not wait for perfect conditions. They made a decision when it still required faith to make it. And now let me close this the way it needs to be closed. You have been prepared. You have been positioned. You have been proven. The one who stayed when staying made no sense. The one who kept faith when faith had nothing visible to stand on. The one who woke up every morning and chose again to trust in something that had not yet shown itself. That is who you are, and that is not a small thing. That is the most important thing. You are committed. You are commissioned. You are sent. And I hear the Father speaking over you right now. Receive this not as the end of a message, but as the beginning of what comes next. He is saying, you have not been waiting for me to show up. I have been here in every moment you thought you were alone, in every night that felt too long, in every morning you chose to keep going, building something in you that the world has not yet seen. The reward is not arriving for a stranger, it is arriving for the person who was built to hold it, and that person is you, right now, exactly as you are. The test did not define you, the staying did. Go. The door is already open.